Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wind Orchestra Masterworks. This is a conversation where we will dive into the Wind Orchestra's greatest stories and legends. I am your host, Mike Korson, and here with me once again for our sixth installment is the conductor of the Lone Star Wind Orchestra, director of wind studies at the University of North Texas, and just all around a great human being. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Maestro Eugene Corporon. Welcome back to the show, Eugene.
Nice to be back. Looking forward to this discussion a lot.
Today, we're going to go ahead and continue our journey through the brass family and talk to one of our members, actually a founding member of the Lone Star Wind Orchestra, and also of our fantastic horn section, Amy Stokes. If you're new to the show, usually we start these conversations with Eugene giving us a little bit of history, a little bit of a history lesson behind the instrument and its involvement in the wind orchestra. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away, Eugene. Let's hear about the French horn.
Sure. It's good to have everybody here. I think as far as wind bands go, it showed up in the classical period when it came inside from being a hunting horn to being used in the classical sextets of Haydn. And a very difficult instrument at that time to play with the oboes and bassoons. That was two oboes, two bassoons, two horns, because it was not a chromatic instrument. It didn't have valves at that time. It's what players refer to as a natural horn. The horn is about 12 or 13 feet long, and that's why it's all wound up so that it can be carried around. Also, there came a time when just taking them apart was an important part of being able to transport them. So a lot of horns today have bells that screw on so that they can go into a case in a way that's practical. As far as the band goes, it's always been an essential part. We usually there's 4 parts written, and quite often there's 2 high parts, 2 low parts, and we'll quite often add an extra player on the high parts and on the low parts and use a section of 6. Sometimes you use only 4 and you have an assistant 5th player who helps the first player with lots of high passages, maybe gives them a break now and then, depending on how complicated the writing is. It's a very versatile instrument and really wonderful melodic instrument. One thing horn players hate to do is play marches, because most of the time they have the upbeat, bop, bop,
Yep.
bop, 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 forever. And it's so interesting. One year we recorded a lot of marches at North Texas, and everybody loved the experience except the horns. They were like, do we really have to play 40 marches? How many upbeats is that? So it's not been used well in the march world, but everywhere else it's fantastic.
Well, with that, we're going to hear from one of the members, also a founding member, as I said before, of one of the best, or the best horn section in Dallas. It's Amy Stokes. Amy, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background.
Well, I'm originally from Tennessee, and I grew up listening to band music because my dad was a middle school band director, and he composed quite a bit for all his students throughout the year. So that was just the sound in my house, was composing. I went to University of Tennessee, Knoxville for a music ed degree. And near the end of that, my fiance said, I would love to go study euphonium with Dr. Brian Bowman at University of North Texas. And so we got married and headed out here.
Can you tell us maybe one of your favorite memories or one of your favorite moments playing under the baton of Eugene, and why that particular moment is standing out to you?
All of them. All the moments. I'd always heard of the Wind Symphony at UNT, so I was pretty intimidated when I got there. But he's just so welcoming right away. This is the most prepared person I've ever met in my life. And when he gets on the podium, you just know you want to give back. You want to meet his expectations. And I think that's why his groups are so terrific. I showed up at UNT in September of 2001. So 9/11 happened right as we were preparing. I think it was our first concert. And I didn't know what to expect as a young person. How do we handle this? And you look to the professors, how are they going to handle this? And Eugene has such compassion, grace about it. And I was worried, are we going to cancel the concert? How does this work? And he said, no, we play the concert, but let's look at the pieces we've got. Let's see how this can be a tribute. And I remember that you even worked with a composer to change some of the titles of the movements. One happened to be Attack and Kill, which was not about anything related to current events, I don't believe, but obviously that was not going to work for the concert. And I think it got changed to Anger and Anguish. And so just working around the tragedy to find something beautiful in it. And that was a really well-attended concert. And I think people were just looking for something beautiful to spend their time on instead of the news at the moment.
So Eugene, Amy and I were talking a little bit before the show, and we thought it might be interesting to hear your philosophy on conducting a horn section in the wind band. Like, what are some things that you consider addressing or think about addressing before giving instruction to them?
I try to leave them alone. Absolutely leave them alone. I mean, there's enough pressure already being a horn player. I think this is really true. So even in terms of the way I might cue a horn section entrance or something, I don't try to overdo it or over dramatize it, because it can just, they're great players and they need calm. They don't need to be aggressively approached, to play the music, because it just makes things worse.
Amy, is that something that you've noticed with Maestro Corporon? He tends to leave the horn section alone.
He does. We love any positive look in our direction too. We eat that up. No, I've played with so many conductors who cue a horn as if they're terrified of what's about to come out, especially a solo moment, or there's been a big brassy moment and then it gets quiet and then here comes the solo horn, and they will flinch, they will do all sorts of things to make it that much scarier to enter, I guess. And Professor Corporon will look at you, of course, but it's this welcoming look, like, come on in, we want to hear what you have to say. And you just feel good about it. You want to play.
Yeah.
And that's so helpful. And yeah, we're left alone quite a bit, but that enables us to make very quick decisions within the section. If we hear a missed note on the page, maybe a misprint, we just fix it right away. We're able to handle a lot of things on the side over there without interrupting rehearsal.
I think that's just about all the time that we have. Thank you both so much for joining me today for our conversation. Thank you all for tuning in if you're listening. Until next time, we will see you later. Bye.